John Calipari already has one five-star committed in the 2025 class, and he's in the hunt for several more, which begs the question, who's next for the Razorbacks?
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. I'm Curtis Wilkerson here with you this afternoon. And yes, Razorback football kicks off this week. Can't wait. But the news keeps flowing with Arkansas Razorbacks basketball. So we're going to talk about it with a little bit of a catch-all episode today. I don't think there's any better place to start than the recruiting trail, right? That's what everybody's excited about. Coach Cal loves him some freshmen. We know that. That's no secret, dating back to his times at Kentucky, where he was bringing in 6, 7, 5-star McDonald's All-Americans, and sounds like he's going to trim that down a little bit. He says he wants 3, 4 freshmen this year, but they're all going to be dynamite players. We know that. So one of the top guards in the country for 2025 is already locked down. That's Darius Acuff, who announced his commitment earlier in the summer to the Razorbacks. But who's next, right? That's what happens. We get excited about a commitment, and then as soon as the initial buzz, the high wears off, it's like, all right, who's next? Come on. Info, give it to us. Well, things are starting to pick up. We've talked about this duo before, but the potential backcourt for the Razorbacks of the future would be Darius Acuff paired alongside Meleek Thomas. Acuff is arguably the best guard in the class. And if you're going to have competition as to who could challenge him there, it would be Meleek Thomas. Now, Thomas is a consensus top 10 prospect in the country in this 2025 class. He's a combo guard, an absolute walking bucket. He's a willing defender, really nice, well-rounded player. I like the way their games complement one another. Now, he had a visit scheduled over the summer, but it was postponed about the time that Acuff announced his commitment to Arkansas. So you were wondering, was it a one or the other type of deal? Did they not want to play together? What's going on here? And then it felt like he was trending towards UConn after a visit there. But the tides are turning in favor of the Razorbacks, and we've mentioned it over recent weeks, but things are really starting to heat up. Joe Tipton at on3.com on Sunday reported that Meleek has scheduled an official visit to Arkansas the weekend of September 13th and 14th, which is just a massive visit weekend for the Razorbacks. We'll get to that in a minute. He has another one scheduled for now at Alabama a couple weeks later. Eyes on Kansas State, maybe for another visit that could be, put together there. And obviously you never count out the back-to-back champs in UConn, but things have been trending positively for Arkansas in this recruitment. And now you've got that official visit set. This is an opportunity for John Calipari to lock down his backcourt for the future. And boy, Darius Acuff and Meleek Thomas would be a fantastic start to doing exactly that. But that's not it. Arkansas is in the hunt for several 5-stars. Speaking of big time visits that are scheduled in that September 13th, 14th weekend, that's the UAB football game, by the way, the first home game in Fayetteville for Razorback football. Another consensus top 10, that's going to be a trend. I'm going to say that several times throughout this conversation, is Koa Pete, that's scheduled to be on campus that same weekend. 6'7" forward, big, strong kid, physically imposing frame, looks like a super athlete. It's in the bloodlines, man. His dad and brother both played in the NFL. Now he's visiting Arizona State this weekend. Arkansas, he's scheduled for the 13th and 14th alongside what we now know to be Meleek Thomas. But then he goes to Duke, Baylor, and Arizona the next 3 weeks. He's scheduled to, at least, with Arizona being who I'd probably call the leader right now. But let's see what happens after that visit. There's something about Fayetteville, there always has been, where it's almost undersold and over-delivered because people don't know what to expect. They hear Arkansas and they're thinking, okay, whatever. They get there and they're blown away by what the campus and the area has to offer. Now you add in John Calipari, who might be the best closer on the recruiting trail in college basketball history, and all bets are off once you get a kid to campus. So Meleek Thomas, Koa Pete, a couple top 10 5-stars coming in. Could those guys be next to join Coach Cal and the Razorbacks? Wouldn't rule anything out there. I like their chances right now with Thomas better than I do Pete, but still, both are very much on the table. But that's not it. Caleb Wilson, another consensus top 10 5-star in the 2025 class. I really, really like. Big time player, 6'9" forward, versatile. He's kind of a modern 4-man. I was watching a highlight video of him last night, And the dude is a bucket getter, and he does things at his size that, quite frankly, not many people can do. I really like Caleb Wilson's game. Now, he's set to visit Kentucky and Alabama in back-to-back weeks here coming up. He's got a ton of heavy hitters involved with him. So where does Arkansas fall into this mix? Well, Arkansas has been the perceived leader and been in the driver's seat in this recruitment. This is a guy that Coach Cal has really prioritized well for a long time now, and he's close with Darius Acuff, who you already have committed. So you've got the allure there of coming and playing with one of your boys. So keep an eye on, getting a visit scheduled there for Arkansas. And then once again, all bets are off, but you're seeing the possibilities here start to stack up, and that's not it. It's not over there. Chris Sinak, really nice piece out of shout out to Link Academy. We know Arkansas has some connections there right up the road in Branson. Another one to keep an eye on. Now, he was rumored to be visiting that very same weekend as Koa Pete and now Meleek Thomas. As I understand it, that's not quite finalized yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen on that weekend or in the future. Just not official for that visit date just yet. So we'll see. But this is a guy who's top 10 at On3, top 10 at ESPN, and he's top 15, 20 by the other recruiting services, another five-star player, 6'10", 210-pound big man. He looks a lot like so many of those freshman bigs that Coach Cal has brought into Kentucky in the past, just longer than a Monday in the office. Can protect the rim, rebound it. He's got some versatility to him now. He can step out and shoot it a little bit. Really, really good player. LSU's been all over him. And so that's kind of been the clubhouse leader for a while there. Houston's been in there. Kentucky's trying to get in there, even though they added Malachi Moreno recently. But if Arkansas wants to add a freshman front court piece, I think things could turn quickly here if the Razorbacks are able to lock in a visit. If Coach Cal wants a guy, he's got a really good shot at getting him. And I like his chances of coming out on top in a recruiting war with some of these schools that I mentioned here. So we'll see how hot and heavy that gets, something to certainly keep an eye on. And then finally, Kingston Flemings out of nowhere, right? 6'3" guard out of San Antonio. Now he's right on that border of five-star status. He came out last week with his top 5. Arkansas is included alongside Houston, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, and Texas. So, maybe I don't want to call it a top 25 prospect in the country, a fallback option, but a plan B if something doesn't work out with Meleek Thomas or some of these other guys. So keep an eye on it, see about things materializing there. Really exciting times on the recruiting trail with Coach Calipari at the helm for sure. And the Calipari brand is strong and it's paying off in other ways, particularly on the scheduling front. We'll talk about it soon here. Stay tuned on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Locked On Razorback fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're really, really going to love. It's called Ultimate College Football Head Coach. It's this amazing game and simulation that you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. That sounds fun. Can you imagine being the head coach of the Razorbacks? Probably a lot of you doing that with the season right around the corner here. But from recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. The question is, can you handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it's going to shape the future and the legacy of your program. It's Ultimate College Football Head Coach. It's completely free. It has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we've got a special offer for you here at Locked On Razorback fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's in all caps, LOCKEDONCFB, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com. That's ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, back on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pot at the Palace edition. Folks, I love this Arkansas versus Baylor basketball game. I really do. I'm excited about it. American Airlines Arena in Dallas, November 9th. That was announced over the weekend. Man, that's just it's almost like the cherry on top for this schedule, right? So November 9th, it's probably not going to be the season opener, but it's going to be just a banger of a game on the first week of the season. So you better work out the kinks quick, right? It's going to get real for Arkansas in a hurry. I was thinking Baylor, I mean, they're probably going to be a top 10 team in the preseason. So 1000% they're going to be a top 25 team. They're going to be really, really good again. If you think about Jeremy Roach transferring in from Duke, Norshad O'Meara from Miami, they've got Langston Love back, a lot of guys back off that team. And VJ Edgecombe, one of the best incoming freshmen in the country. They're going to be pretty loaded up. It's a cool contrast to styles with Arkansas having a little bit more length and size. Baylor probably playing some small ball, but having more shooting. Really cool early season matchup. When's the last time Arkansas played a ranked opponent this early? I was thinking about that before we started the show. I thought maybe that Texas game, they played at Fort Bliss, it was in 2018, but I'm not so sure that the Longhorns were ranked in the AP poll to start the year that year. So you might have to go back for a while for Arkansas to really challenge themselves that early in the season with a marquee opponent. That's what you get with Coach Cal in the scheduling department. Kudos to Cal and Scott Drew for getting this game done. I know they were looking at kind of a mid-December date, and talks kind of hit a snag because of that, but they came together and made it work. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, Arkansas has lost the last two meetings against Baylor. We remember Lucas Oil Stadium and the Elite Eight. That Baylor team was a buzzsaw. JD Notae was cooking. He fouled out with 13 minutes left in the game. I don't know that it would have made a difference, but Arkansas played Baylor closer than anyone else did in that NCAA tournament run that they had for a championship. And then a couple years ago, right, the SEC Big 12 Challenge, the last installment of that in Waco, drove down for that game. Arkansas played really well, back and forth, had the lead late, coughed it up. They were down by 3 towards the end of the game, ran that free throw play where they kind of miss it on purpose, tip it out to the corner. Joseph Pinion to tie the game and send it to overtime. No, not even close. Missed it. Arkansas lost that one. That was kind of a bummer. But I was looking, and Coach Cal has coached against Baylor 3 times during his time at Kentucky, at least. I don't know what he did, UMass and Memphis, but I checked on the Kentucky side of things, and he's only 1-2 against Baylor in those 3 games, but he lost 2 regular season meetings. The game that he won, Kentucky put Baylor out in that 2012, I believe it was 2012 Elite Eight game to advance to the Final Four. And that was a really good Baylor team there. So it's a great game. Like I said, I think it's kind of the cherry on top. I mean, now you've got a neutral against Baylor, a neutral against Illinois, a true road game at Miami, and a neutral at Madison Square Garden against Michigan. Those are 4 really, really good non-conference games. And Arkansas needs to be battle tested before that SEC slate that we've talked about, which is it ain't going to be easy, right? I mean, that thing is absolutely loaded with games. So when it comes to, net rankings or quad one opportunities or whatever you want to call it, I think it's safe to say Arkansas is going to have plenty of those. Just a couple more games left on that non-conference schedule before it's complete. Wouldn't surprise me if that's released in the next week or two. They need an opener unless Pacific winds up taking the date. I know John Rothstein reported that Arkansas and Pacific were going to play this season. There was no date attached to that, so maybe that would be that opener. I don't know. Will they sneak in another big time game? A home and home. I know Cal really wanted to get somebody into Bud Walton Arena. I kind of doubt it at this stage of the game, but I wouldn't completely rule it out. I do wish the schedule had a little bit more pop at home at Bud Walton Arena. There's some good games in there for SEC play. You get Alabama at home, you get Texas at home. You got to love those. But not really much pop there in the non-conference just yet. And that's just going to be the case sometimes. I will say with these neutral site games, I'm glad that they're doing it the way that they're doing it, because it allows people to travel to watch some of these marquee games, and it's reasonable, right? It's reasonable. I'll tell you this right now. I know I'll be making the drive to Dallas and Kansas City in November to watch Razorbacks play, and it's going to be cool. It's going to give you that tournament style experience on a neutral floor, fans from both teams sitting in there watching, and that way you get to March Madness, and it almost feels like something that you've seen before. So yeah, I would love to have Baylor or Illinois or whoever in Bud Walton Arena. And maybe down the road we'll get that, because remember, Arkansas under Cal, they got a late start to the schedule. So the fact that they've put together what they have so far is pretty impressive. But I'll be looking forward to it regardless. It's going to be a lot of fun. Whew. It is game week for Arkansas football, and the basketball news clearly never stops here in Fayetteville, which means I've had to tackle a pretty long to-do list, folks. And thankfully, 5-Hour Energy fixes tired. Boy, I'm glad they do. Whether you have a long to-do list at work or a list of do-it-yourself projects at home, take a 5-Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off of that list as you want to do it. If you're like me, you always have a ton of projects around the house that need tending to. And when you go out and get your supplies, don't forget the most essential supply. It's a 5-Hour Energy shot. 5-Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give you the alert, energized feeling you need to get through a busy, hectic day. I've already had one today. And you always know right where to find 5-Hour Energy. It's going to be right at the register, right? Whether you're at a convenience store, drugstore, grocery store, anywhere nationwide, it's going to be right in front of you. You can also stock up on a money-saving multi-pack to make sure you never run out. Listeners, if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. That's LOCKEDONCFB. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, and it cannot be used with other promotions. The code's not good with subscription offers, but go to 5hourenergy.com today and make sure you check it out. Take advantage of this deal. All right, and we're back for the final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. You know, one of the things that I brought up in the past, the recent past, I guess, is that I was surprised that after Coach Cal went and got his top 9 guys that he talked about for the roster, the rotation, and then he filled out the rest of the roster, that he just brought in a bunch of guards, 5 guards. And especially after Lawson Blake got injured, an unfortunate injury to Lawson Blake. But after that happened, I was thinking, oh, they're definitely going to go out and get a big. Why? Because who the heck are these guys going to practice against? Arkansas has 3 big men on the roster in Big Z and Jonas Adu and Trevin Brazil, and they're all in the rotation. They're all going to be playing big minutes. Who are they going to go up against in practice to kind of simulate what you're going to see in the SEC? Well, something that Cal said when he was talking about keeping a tight rotation was hiring young grad assistants who maybe just wrapped up their playing careers. I thought that was really interesting. Well, got to give a shout out to our guy Hog Stats for bringing this to my attention, but it answered my question. Cal is looking to bring in a couple big men on the graduate assistant staff. Tamaj Parker Rivera is one of them. He's a 6'8" forward who played college basketball at Towson, really nice career at Towson, a mid-major, and he's played overseas for 8 years. Most recently, this past year, he was in Puerto Rico. He's 30 years old, so he's a grown man. Kind of sounds like it plays the part. I bet he's going to get in there and mix it up with the Razorbacks, right? It's a dude who's about a Dude Thiero size, maybe a little bit thicker, grown man, right? You love to see it. And also Ray Surratt, 6'10" fella. He actually played for Kentucky's manager team last year, which is, it just so happens to be who Arkansas's manager team beat to win the manager championship at the Final Four. I know I talked about that a lot as it was going on. I think it's really cool that the managers create their teams. They usually play maybe the night before the actual teams play a game. And then the best of the bunch, they get sent down to wherever the Final Four is at, and they play a championship tournament. And they have a championship. I don't know if there's a trophy involved, but they get to celebrate. Arkansas won it. That's pretty cool. But I like the idea of Arkansas bringing in a couple big bodies here to be able to go in there and bang against Adu, against Big Z in practice. They're going to need that. They are. And so it adds to the depth without actually adding to the depth. But I appreciate it. And honestly, if you look at it, it's like they've gone out and recruited for this manager team. Can they defend their title? I don't know how much people care about that. I just think it's such a cool story and a cool opportunity because those guys, the graduate assistants, the managers, they work so hard throughout the course of the year, and to be able to have a little bit of fun and then have the opportunity to be rewarded at the end of the year with the chance to go to a Final Four and compete and represent the school or the team. It's really cool. It's a cool deal. And, Arkansas's got to defend their crown. So good to see a couple big men added to the roster there. But that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, this has been Curtis Wilkerson, and we will catch you same place, same time, in a couple days.